Namaste, and thank you so much for joining me. Today, I would like to share with you a few warm-ups to just keep things nice and fluid and loose and moving in your hips. We're going to start seated on a mat. If you have some kind of prop that you can use today, that would allow you to have a little bit more freedom as we get moving. So taking your block, we'll go ahead and start seated on that. If you have that, you could always use something such as a hard-covered book or a rolled blanket. That's also nice for supporting the shins and the ankles. As you're coming into your seated pose, we're just going to start to move the body, right? Simply swaying from side to side, getting to know what's happening here, maybe some forward and back movements, starting to notice this anterior and posterior tilt of the pelvis, and feeling how your sits bones are getting into this posture, rooting on your prop. Once you find that your sits bones are nice and rooted, we're just looking for the uprightness of the spine with natural curvature, right? So we're not filling in the low back to decrease the curvature. We're not leaning in an excessive back bend, just right there in the center of your pelvis. And then resting the shoulders, resting the palms. They could be in your lap, or you might rest them at the knees, whatever's most suitable for you today. And taking a moment to close your eyes and tune into the wonderful aliveness within. And as you begin to find yourself more aware, you can slow and deepen your breath for a few more rounds. And we're just breathing solely in and out through the nose. And from that centered space, inviting the eyes back into the space that's around you. And we'll start to walk the hands forward. And if you've chosen the seated pose, Virasana as I am, you can walk your hands a little wider and start to sway a little bit from side to side. If you've chosen a cross-legged position, you can also rest forward, maybe placing the forearms and swaying from side to side. So choosing what's most appropriate for you. We're just moving a little bit, starting to check into the shoulder blades and scapula. Again, checking in with what's happening in your hips today, noticing what's happening in your low back. And most important, as you're moving, not trying to force the movements. This is more of an investigation, exploring sensation. And then slowly returning back to the uprightness of the spine. And once you find yourself finding that center again, we're going to go ahead and step forward with our right foot. As you're stepping forward with your right foot, we're just rooting into the bottom of the right foot and noticing that the right knee remains in an upright position and leaning towards that. If for some reason this variation, allowing the heel to be on the outside of the hip, is not as comfortable for you, you're more than welcome to tuck your left heel behind your right foot. And just as before, we're leaning into that, putting some pressure into the bottom of the right foot. noticing some compression in the right hip. And taking your time to return to the uprightness of the spine. And again, choosing your variation. Maybe you're in the external rotation in the hip. Maybe you're working with the internal rotation of the hip. And whichever variation you're taking, we're going to go ahead and start to reach out to the left side. We want to make sure that we're placing the left palm fully and maintaining the uprightness in the right side, but starting to draw out of the right hip. So you can support with your right hand here. Some of you might feel comfortable enough to reach and extend with the right arm, making sure that's in line with your ear, that the palm is facing down. We're not creating a bend in the elbow. We want a straight line of energy if you're reaching. So choosing that, maybe again, supporting here at the knee, maybe reaching. As the body starts to come into the pose, you might have an opportunity to lean all the way to the forearm. And again, you might support with your hand. You might be reaching and extending. Choosing what's most appropriate for your practice today. Most important, breathing. And wherever you are, we're pressing into the left palm, returning back to center. And as we return back to center, we're just going to start to rotate the torso towards the right knee. And that might be hugging. It might be placing the elbow to the outside of the knee, allowing your left palm to touch your right shoulder. Once you find the rotation of your spine, just returning your gaze back towards your left shoulder. Encouraging the rotation of your rib cage. Noticing the gentle tug on the SI joint. Try to relax your lower belly. As you're softening, there might be more space to rotate. Make sure your breath is continuing to flow in and out through the nose. And slowly returning back to center. As you return back to center, we're going to tip ourselves over and come back to a seated posture. If you did the posture where you're on your knees, maybe this time you're crossing your ankles. And we're just returning to that slow movement from side to side. So again, whichever position most suitable for you, we're starting to lean into this, maybe bowing one shoulder, the other. And as you return, we're stepping our left foot forward. So again, you might be tucking the right heel behind your left heel, or you might be working with the bent knee back position, whichever is most appropriate for your practice. From here, we're making sure that we walk the heel in a little bit. We're starting to lean towards this left knee, finding that compression in the hip, rooting through all four corners of the foot. Let's take a few breaths here, breathing in and out through the nose. And returning to the uprightness of your spine. This time, we're allowing the right palm to extend towards the outside. And we're starting to draw away from the left hip. And you can check in. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to start to reach the arm. Continuing to stimulate your breath, expanding your lungs. And as the body is starting to create more space, there might be an opportunity to start to drift towards the forearm. Again, choose your variation. And we're allowing the body to express its fullness. So we're not pushing or forcing in any way. Just noticing the space and approaching that lightly. And most important, the breath continues to deepen. And also maintaining a balance between the inhalations and exhalations. Taking your time, pushing into the right palm, returning to an upright position. And we're going to either hug the left knee or invite the elbow to the outside. Rotating the spine. As you're coming into this posture, turning your gaze off your right shoulder. And just work on the rotation of the spine. Keeping the neck relaxed, breathing deeply, softening the lower belly. And just like before, approaching the rotation mindfully, noticing space, softening into that space. And unwinding. We're returning to your chosen seated position. So again, that might be Virasana on the knees. You might be working with a cross-legged position. And just resting the palms, we're coming back to that slow movement, swaying from side to side. Checking in with your shoulder blades, checking in with the movement of the lumbar spine, how that shifts weight into one side of the pelvis and then the other. And this time we're just going to settle in the forward fold. Just relaxing either to the palms or the forearms, you choose. If it seems appropriate to begin to rest further forward, taking your skull towards the earth, maybe even taking hands towards the lower back, that's okay too. Working with your breath. As you continue to tune into your breath, most importantly, thanking yourself for being and breathing in your body today. I thank you for sharing your practice and look forward to seeing you sometime soon on the mat. Namaste.